Hey guys, this here is part 2 of the Vampires on Ice story. Part 1 was done by Critical Kunik, and you can find a link to his video in the description and in the cards on the top right. So if you haven't watched part 1, I would suggest that you go do so that you have better context to the story. But without further ado, let's begin. Problem 4. Assassination and player agency. In any intrigue, political maneuvering, or stealth game, assassination is a key aspect that should be expected. After all, if someone was bothering you, you can't just murder them in broad daylight, except for when you can, or send them to court, except when you do. So yes, the dark and gritty world the ST made was practically brimming with assassination attempts, except not really. The ST was, in fact, against any assassinations that he didn't like. For example, a story from a friend of mine. Basically, there was a vampire named Malkav, and she was a 3rd gen, and so she was unkillable. But she could still be knocked into torpor, but she would eventually come back. And in the campaign, she murdered my friend's childer, and we'll be calling my friend Psychopath, because his character was literally insane and perfectly okay with murder. So he wanted to assassinate her as revenge for his child being murdered. Now, this was an influential member of the city, and they would have high defenses. The only issue is I didn't tell you that Malkavian vampires are fan favorites, and as such, are given powers that aren't written. Malkavian vampires can become a part of a mental web where they can derive information from any of their brethren. This is used for them to know things that they shouldn't. Also, after a big explosive "I hate you, Dad" episode on the vampire lore, each vampire clan is cursed and Malkavians go completely insane. A bad Malkavian plays this as, "I'm insane, look at me," while the good ones struggle against that insanity. But again, this insanity only occurs after the clans are cursed. In the story, Malkav was already insane, as was one of her childer, and the DM played Malkav as the stereotypical, "I see the future, ooh, look at the hallucinations" type of mad. I bring this up because for all intents and purposes, Malkavians aren't really omnipotent. So when the psychopath tried to assassinate Malkav in an act of vengeance that had story relevance, he was told, "You can't do that." So he argued with the ST, claiming that he was okay with the suicide mission, even if it didn't work. The ST responded with, "No, you can't do that. She'll know it's coming already." How she knew, or why it mattered, however, I know not. Psychopath was simply forced away from doing his one act of vengeance to the only person who's really made him angry. Another example is with the Flood. In the game, Noah's Flood actually happened, and the Ark was one of the only safe places. However, going there was in direct violation with basically all the other higher-up vampires. It was a sign of treason to the city and to their family. However, as the only safe place, a good dozen vampires left to it. It was the last session of the season, and the dozen or so vampires arrived to see a flimsy wooden boat. Not the magnificent ark that they were promised by the angels. But whatever. They tried to board it, only for a vampire named Zilla to come up and say, "Hey, no, y'all did naughty." Zilla then proceeded to attack everyone, but was quickly beaten down because the DM didn't quite understand what the heck action economy meant. So everyone there tried to get into the ark. But the flood came, and the ark was closed. So only those who fled into it during the fight were able to manage to get in. And as for those that didn't flee to the Ark, there was only 1 or 2 who stayed in the city with their sires. And need I remind you that vampires die to the sun. They can also be damaged by normal things. Human bodies also float. So if we're thinking about this logically, those that took no risks had no challenges to overcome, and would have a good chance to just die before the next session. Instead, somehow, every character survived, from those that made deals to be in a fortress on the highest mountain, to those that risked everything to get on an ark, to those that did nothing of note and took no risk. Everyone survived. All organizations removed, etc. Player agency was non-existent. You either did something, or you didn't, and you would still be in the same place. Problem 5. Lore. Vampire the Masquerade has a rich lore. The entire world of darkness has tons of books and lore and everything else written about it. Some of it, well written, some of it, not. However, one thing I can say is this. The ST's interpretation of the lore was simply god-awful. Every NPC was crayon-eatingly stupid unless they needed to be smart or metagame. Then they had 2000 IQ and were big-brained. For instance, Akeem is a vampire, 3rd gen, and known for his love of the law. He was a head judge, a supposedly intelligent man, but he ate crayons. In the middle of a court hearing, another vampire began to use magic on him to control his mind. This required hand motions and under-the-breath chants. And when a player pointed out this obvious brainwashing, Akeem said, "Alright, let's ask a court wizard to check my mind for this stuff." While said court wizard was the vampire standing there, using the spells to alter his mind. No one, not Akeem, nor the NPCs around, thought it was odd for the man accused of brainwashing to, not be the one to check for brainwashing. Other examples are the Guru, or werewolves. In World of Darkness, they are arrogant, yet noble, creatures that blurred the line between animal and man. They fight against the evil of the world, but with a brutality and callousness that makes them seem evil. There are other types of were-creatures as well, but in the past, Guru wanted all the world's lore, and demanded it from the others. This set off a war between the were-creatures, and it ended with 2 of them going extinct. A shame for all Guru. The ST had decided that the Ice Age would be the best time for that fighting to occur, and I mentioned him previously. The Silverfang werewolf with 30+ dice on all attacks and rolls. He wasn't nuanced or unique. He was Werewolf Hitler. See, in the lore, there was a buildup of tension between the were-creatures, with the Guru wanting to get knowledge, and others saying no, with others saying yes. There was a conflict and massive political turmoil that brought about this eventual massive war. In the game, it was Werewolf Hitler, and Werewolf Hitler wanted to destroy everything in the world and cleanse it for Gaia. Werewolf Hitler thought that werewolves were at the top, and as such, every other race and species on the planet should die. And if you think I'm boiling it down to its simplest, you're mistaken. In the lore, werewolves protect humanity as part of the circle of life, and some werewolves are human. They fight a never-ending war against the darkness to save the world. They are arrogant, yes, but not to the point of pure cruelty. In the game, they attacked human tribes and killed everyone, man, woman, and child. And this seemed like a good time as any to talk about the most bullcrap thing in the world. Werewolf Hitler had sent a pack of wolves against the base where my character was staying at, and we used the system that he created. It was 3 versus 6 d6s. Werewolves with the 6, and by some stroke of luck, the 3d6 all rolled high. 3 successes, with the 6d6 rolling garbage every time. Now imagine for me, a scene. It's the Ice Age, and snow litters the ground, and there's a group of hunters from a tribe that hear the hunting call of the Guru, their sister tribe having already been slaughtered, so they know that it means war. The hunters hug their loved ones goodbye and take up arms, going to meet the enemy on more favorable ground. The Guru come charging, and the fight breaks out. It's a hard fight, but the Guru are overconfident, falling into pit traps and being surrounded and stabbed. And despite having every advantage, the human numbers and superior tactics win the day, staking their claim on the owners for the world. Thematically relevant for humans in the Ice Age, epic in moments for the soldiers we trained, and the ST let us win the fight. I asked him in DMs if that meant we were safe for a while, and that they wouldn't attack again, and he said yes. A couple of days later, he made an announcement. Unexpected downtime between this session and next. There will be a 5-year gap. Mind you, I was in the middle of an important character arc scene in the last session, concerning a vampire far stronger than I, and getting allies to deal with her. It was also the first day of classes at college, so I tuned it out. The ST decided that a few years was enough time for them to rebuild an army and send it again. This time, twice as strong. And needless to say, the armies of man stood no chance, and they died. He then had a text RP where my character, a man who just watched all of his friends die in savage ways, was forced to talk with Werewolf Hitler. He spoke of some people he knew that Werewolf Hitler liked, but apparently that wasn't enough to spare him. And Werewolf Hitler demanded the location of other vampires. And whether or not my character even knew of their homes or not depended entirely upon the scene that I hadn't completed. I told the ST that I needed to finish the scene to answer the question, so maybe we could pick this up later. But no, he demanded that I answered it then and there. It was important that I knew where Silverfang was and who he was going to go after. So I said that I didn't, as I, the player, didn't, to which I then was stabbed and killed by the NPC, and was told that it was my fault that I didn't lie about other locations, even though my character had no deception or subterfuge. Clearly, I was just playing my character wrong. So what got me banned? I saw this question a while ago, so I thought I would address it. A couple of months later, and many arguments with the ST in private about some of the flaws in his system, I was fed up with his insistence that he didn't play favorites. So, I sent out a survey to the other players and PMs. It was a simple few questions. Do you think there's favoritism? If so, do you think it negatively impacts the game? Do you think that there's metagaming? If so, do you think that metagaming negatively impacts the game? So, just a few simple questions that didn't push the envelope. Or, so I thought. An hour later, I was banned from the game with the ST saying that I just wasn't the right fit for his game. And if you're curious about the results, before the mod team banned me, and I presume took the survey themselves, 50% of them said that there was favoritism, with 20% saying that they didn't know, with 50% of people saying that there was also metagaming, and 20% of them saying that it wasn't an issue. And now, it's time for a confession. I reached out to a person still in the game and asked if it had changed, to which they responded positively. The ST had been forced to change, though they implied he fought the change every step of the way. He revamped organizations and army combat, so it was more fun and engaging. Due to getting away from the DM's passion of lore butchering, and more to where players can actually influence the world. So it's picked back up with player agency. NPCs, however, still eat crayons and make stupid choices, and the spectacle of cinematic scenes are still at the forefront of everything. Assistant STs now have more restrictions on the characters, so they can't metagame and win, although favoritism is still rampant via plot armor. So, minor improvements? I still have no faith, and have yet more stories to tell, should people desire them. But in any case guys, that's the end of the video. If you haven't checked out part 1, you should go do so over on Kunik's channel, and I hope you enjoyed, and if you have a story that you would like me to narrate, let me know. And if you want to chat and hang out with other people, I have a Discord link in the description.